Welcome back to the Just Talk Hoops podcast. Hopefully, you guys have had a great couple of weeks. We didn't get an episode out last week because we were working with another guy. We were doing a collab, so we that'll be out on my Instagram in just a bit. We were working together, and I talked about some of my stuff with disrespect of all time, like all time players, all time legends, older players, and I talked about also my. Just how I want every decade to be respected, every player who's done something great for this game to be respected. So we talked about that for a little while, and then we also did a trivia game that was really fun. I think I did pretty well, so you'll have to check that out. And then we're going to keep doing that again, so that'll be it's a bit of a tournament thing, so that'll be cool. And I'll continue getting that out for you guys, and you'll see that. Like if you're on my Instagram, which go follow if you're not, Just Talk Hoops, then you can check out all the stuff that I'm doing on there. And I mean, I'm not doing a whole lot on there, but you'll at least be able to see that, and the link will be right there for you. If you're not on Instagram, then it'll be Super Mario Hoops. You can find him on YouTube, stuff like that. And that episode's with me, and it is not quite out yet, but for sure check out his other stuff. He's got some really cool stuff. But this week we are actually getting an episode out for you guys, my Just Talk Hoops listeners, and it should be a pretty fun episode. I think that it's interesting. I think it's an interesting concept. I'm glad I was able to think of some players that fit it. And before we get right into it, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, and if you are on Spotify, 5-star rating, please. I really do appreciate it. I know we're not the biggest podcast out there, but if you guys do that stuff, then it'll help us grow. So I really do appreciate you guys doing that. And yeah, we can get right into it here. We'll do our games of the week at the end of the day, of course, as we always do. We had a pretty good week a couple weeks ago, but anyway, we'll get into it right now. So what we're doing today is, let me talk a little bit about where I thought of this idea. So obviously Peyton Watson was the Western Conference Player of the Week the other week, which, quick tangent about that, I feel like kind of on top of the world about that because I'm a huge Peyton Watson fan. I'm a huge believer in Peyton Watson. I have been advocating for Peyton Watson since his rookie year. I'm a huge believer in his game. I feel like I kind of called it with him. Now, I didn't expect him to take as big of an offensive jump as he's taken this year. He's been doing an incredible job creating shots for himself, creating even shots for his teammates. Like his playmaking has improved. And although he still does have some stuff to work on, right, he's absolutely incredible in terms of just like his handle looks really good. His jump shot has improved. He's like I said, he's creating, like he's getting to the rim well. He's creating in the mid range. He's shooting fadeaway. Like he looks like a real bona fide scorer. On top of, we know he brings great defense. We know he brings athletic ability. We know he brings the ability to run the floor. And all of a sudden, it's like Peyton Watson could fill a whole different role for the Nuggets, which they've needed because because they've gone so long without being healthy. They've needed someone to step up and play above what they've been playing earlier and create some offense with Jokic out, and Peyton Watson has been that guy. So he's been performing exceptionally well. And obviously, Jamal has stepped up. Guys like Jalen Pickett has played well. Spencer Jones has played really well. I've been really happy with Spencer Jones' production. And I was just thinking, I was like, okay, so Peyton Watson is a guy that I did predict to be great, right? And there are some other guys in the past. I thought that Cam Thomas, like in his rookie year, I saw a few summer league games and one preseason game, and I was like, this guy is going to be a bona fide 20-point per game scorer. And I didn't have the podcast at that time, so I couldn't get that takeout. But that is something that I believe. Like I believed in him. I believed in his style. Now, I won't pretend that I've hit on every single one of my guesses. I've missed on some. There are some players that I thought were going to be great that were not, and there were some players that I thought weren't going to be good that ended up being great. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of, and as someone who, if you listen to the podcast a lot, you know that I'm not a super big college basketball guy. Like I enjoy watching it, of course, and I watch March Madness and all this stuff, but I pay significantly more attention to the NBA. So my only real knowledge of college basketball comes when I'm scouting for like the NBA draft, and I'm saying, okay, let me look at all the prospects, let me look through what they're good at, what they're bad at, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I start actually looking at like the college prospects. Before then, I'm kind of like, I watch games, but I'm not like diving into each player. I'm not paying as much attention just because like I still enjoy watching it because it's basketball, of course, but it's not the same like level of knowledge, the same level of expertise that I'm at with the NBA. So I don't predict quite as much about guys coming into the league, but once I see a little bit of them in the league, I like to try and guess their trajectories. I think I'm pretty decent at it. Like I said, I've missed on a fair number as well, but I do think that I do have some hits. So what we're doing today is we're going through some players that I think will kind of get into a new role. Or I don't know exactly, like there's a few different ways it could go, right? There are some players on here that I'm like, if they went somewhere new, they might be able to do something great that they weren't able to do before. And there's some that it's like, if they just continue on the path they're going, there are some that are a little more obvious, a little more guesswork. But I think that they're pretty safe bets. I don't have any that it's like this guy hasn't gotten any minutes, but I entirely believe it's just guys that I think fly under the radar a little bit when people are talking about like, oh, these are quality role players, because these guys are all, for the most part, quality role players. And now it's just like I believe in these guys becoming something more, or just if you give them more opportunity, then they'll show that fan base and the rest of the league exactly how good they are. So I think it's pretty fun. Now, like I said, these are mostly safe. Like there's no like crazy ones in here. And like most of them I don't expect to become stars. I just expect them to become slightly more productive. Just when they get more minutes. We'll start with one actually who just recently showed some flashes, and that's Bryce Sensabaugh. So I don't remember if I said it on this podcast or not, but before the year, this season, the 2026 season, I predicted Bryce Sensabaugh was going to lead the Utah Jazz in scoring, or at least was going to make a run at it. Now, obviously, because Lauri Markkanen has had a really good year, and because Keontae George has played really good basketball, that has not come to fruition. Bryce Sensabaugh has not been close, but I saw like last season in the second half of the year, he played extremely good basketball, and I don't watch a ton of Jazz basketball. I'm someone who will watch basketball if it's on, but like with the Jazz, it's kind of like if there's a different game on, I might watch that instead. But I have watched like Bryce Sensabaugh and in his time with the Jazz, I've seen what he can do, and I am very impressed by. Now this year, he didn't get quite as much opportunity through a lot of the season that I expected him to. I drafted him in fantasy, and then he didn't really play. But just recently, he had a 41-point game, and that was, I think, kind of the reason that I was like, there we go, right? Like I was like, okay, he does have still that same talent that I saw. Now it just comes down to, is he going to get the opportunity with the Jazz to continue that? Now I know that he's not incredibly consistent. I know that he's not like a perfect scorer by any means, but he is a good scoring player. He's a great shooter. He can shoot the three ball really well when he's having a good like when he's on, he's shooting the ball extremely well. He's got good scoring instincts. He knows how to get to his spots, and he's got just a solid frame. Like he's a bulkier player, despite being pretty young. He's good at getting into his just getting to his spots and then not really letting contact phase him too much. So when he gets to the rim, I mean, he's not a crazy athlete, right? That's one of the things that kind of limits his development is he's not someone who's going to take you off the dribble and then just explode past you. Even just taking you off the dribble in general, he doesn't have an incredible handle. But because of that solid figure, he can kind of, if he can get just a little bit of an angle, he can kind of bump his way and like stay strong. And he doesn't do that a ton. Once again, I don't watch a ton of Jazz games, but he does have a solid frame that allows him to do that, right? We see it with a guy like a Cam Thomas, actually, or like a Luka Doncic. Now, obviously, he's not going to be Luka. They play very differently. But because they've got these bigger frames, it kind of allows them to, once they get a guy kind of angled up against them, they can bump and stay strong and still finish that. And versus a guy who gets a little more like bothered by contact. So him already having that solid frame helps him if he can learn how to use it even better. Plus that good jump shot, plus the ability to get to his spots, plus we've seen the high volume, right? We've seen he can score at a high volume. It's not like, oh, well, he's a consistent shooter even though he never shoots the ball. No, it's like he can score at a high volume. He can give you 40, he can give you 30, he can give you 20. And so I think that it just comes down to consistency. But I do genuinely think that if you keep him around, plus Laurie and Keontae. And Laurie, I feel like, is the one that you're maybe the least certain about just because you don't know how well he fits your timeline. But I think that team, a team of Keontae, Sensabaugh, Laurie, Walker Kessler comes back at the 5. Like, he's injured, obviously, for the rest of this year. But once he comes back, right, and then you've got some other young talent over there that you can fit in, and Ace Bailey, if he plays well, like, he's started to step it up a little bit. Obviously, he's not quite the scoring phenomenon that some people were expecting, but I think a lot of people knew he was a project. But if you can have Sensabaugh be in that lineup as a high volume shooter, or just like as just someone, an offensive option, then I genuinely think that team could look good offensively. Now, you do have some questions about that defense, but I think that Sensabaugh could become a guy who averages 20 points per game, similar to a Cam Thomas. Now, I don't know if it's going to be, oh, we want Bryce Sensabaugh being our leading scorer as a contending team. I don't think that's what it is. I think that on a contending team, his role would look more like off the bench. He could start, but it would be more catch and shoot guy who can put the ball on the floor a little bit and can get to his spots a little bit and put points on the board. But just the fact that he's able to not just shoot the ball but also score the ball a little bit just makes me feel like this is a guy who on a weaker Utah Jazz team could average 20. Now, like I said, Keontae and Laurie are kind of stealing that opportunity, which, like, I don't want to use stealing in the negative sense of the word, just like there's only so many shots that can go around. But I do really believe in Bryce Sensabaugh, and that he's someone who I've believed in for a while. Like, he was one of my favorites to win Most Improved Player. Did I predict him to win it? I don't remember. I don't remember who I predicted to win. Let me check. Most Improved Player, because I always have to go back to. No, I predicted Andrew Nembhard, but he was my dark horse, so he was on the list. So I'll give myself a little bit of credit, but he's not going to win Most Improved Player. But he is a guy who I do really believe in, and I have for a while. Moving on, another guy who I think the talent is so clearly there already, but the opportunity isn't really, is Jamal Shead. Now, he's played as a backup point guard. He started some games for the Raptors, and he's played really good basketball, right? So this isn't as much like he's gonna take a random jump. Like Jamal Shead, I think that anyone who's watching Raptor games recognizes exactly what he does, exactly what he's good at. The only thing is he's playing under Immanuel Quickley, and Quickley's got such a big contract that it's difficult to say, like, Quickley's under contract for what, 3 more years after this? Something like that, 2 or 3. And he's playing, he's getting paid a good bit of money, right? So you're kind of stuck with Quickley as your point guard unless you trade him, which I don't know exactly what that trade looks like because of the fact that, who's taking on that contract from Immanuel Quickley, who's not a bad basketball player, but isn't really worth his money. But I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Jamal Shead ended up jumping Quickley in the starting lineup. Now, I do think the Raptors like him as a player off the bench, but I think that Jamal Shead is a guy who could be a starting point guard in this league for years. He's a small guard, which is one of the worries, right? We've seen the small guards sort of phased out of the league, especially in recent years. There are only a few really elite small guards left. You look at the Stephs, you look at the Kyries, you look at the Jalen Brunsons of the world, right? Now, I don't think that Jamal Shead has the ability to be a Steph, Kyrie, or Jalen Brunson, but he does have a really good understanding of how to score and just to make things happen. Like, it's not necessarily, he's not a huge volume scorer, which he doesn't need to be, because you look at the rest of that roster, it's like you've got Brandon Ingram, who's very capable as a scorer. You've got Scotty Barnes, who's very capable as a scorer. You've got RJ Barrett, who's capable as a scorer. Like, you've got guys who will shoot the ball. And obviously RJ's missed a good bit of time this year, but just in terms of their roster construction overall. And obviously we don't know how the Raptors are going to look over the next few years, what they're going to do, but I do think that Shead is a guy who could fit alongside them because he's so good at finding shooters. He's so good at getting he's so good at getting 2 feet into the paint despite being a smaller guard, drawing in that sort of defense and then kicking it out. He just has really good passing instincts. He's got good body control. He's got a really good his floater is good, so he can finish. Like even when he's faced with a bigger player, he can still score inside. His 3-point jump shot has come along. I feel like he still needs a little bit of work on that shot, but I mean, there's upside there. Like he's got good fundamentals on the jump shot. He's got good you don't look at it and you're like, dear God, don't shoot another three, please. I'm begging you, right? But he is someone who it's going to be difficult as a small guard. That's one of the most difficult roles to play in the current NBA with the influx of bigger guards and just shot blockers, right? But he plays gritty, he plays tough defense, he plays he makes good plays, and I just feel like when you have such a smart player who's still very young, when you have such a smart player with such good instincts on the playmaking side of things and just such a good ability to find his teammates, that just is something that I feel really confident about being something that will always be valuable in the NBA, right? There will never be a time where a player with good instincts is not valued. A player with good IQ is not valued. Now, I understand that the smaller pass-first guard is losing some of its steam, but I think that Jamal Shead is one of the people who will keep that archetype alive, and I am a huge believer in Shead. I'm not sure what his ceiling looks like, right? We already know that he's a solid point guard. Because of him being a small guard, I do think that it's difficult for him to ever be a star. I don't see him being that, but I do think that he could be a starter for many years. Another guy who fits a similar role. So I mentioned how I had Andrew Nembhard as my most improved player pick. I have his brother Ryan Nembhard as one of the guys I expect to be really solid for years to come. Now, obviously, he's a rookie this year, and he's leading all rookies in assists per game. Last I saw, he's a good passer. He's already got really good playmaking abilities as a guard, right? As a rookie guard, I should say. And we see rookies a lot of time kind of struggle with that aspect of the game, just because having the ball in your hands and being expected to know what to do with it can be very, very tricky. So when you see them doing well in that set and doing well in that archetype and passing the ball well and playmaking for their teammates already as a rookie, that just shows a ton of promise. He's a good 3-point shooter, right? So he has an ability to knock down shots. He has an ability to score. He's got a great handle. He's got decent hands on the defensive end. He can create a steal or two. It kind of seems like his brother sometimes, where he makes smart defensive plays. I think he could be a good, consistent guard option. Now, obviously, we don't know exactly what he's going to look like in the Mavs' long-term plans, just because the Mavs are in kind of a weird spot where they've got him and Flag as their rookies. But then they've also got Kyrie and AD, who are obviously older, a little more tenured and great players. But with Kyrie not expected, last I saw he's not expected to return this season because of the Anthony Davis injury. They're saying, let's just get another high pick and just build up our young core, which, I'm not particularly mad at. But I do think that it is going to become an interesting thing to see, say next year Kyrie comes back, Anthony Davis comes back. Then you're looking at, obviously, Flag's going to start. Obviously, AD and Kyrie are going to start. So then does Nembhard start alongside Kyrie, or does he? Probably not, right? He's probably not going to start next year. But Klay Thompson has played bad basketball this year. So maybe Nembhard takes a little bit of a jump and you have him in that lineup as your playmaker, getting the ball to those other guys. I think that could actually be a really valuable role for Nembhard, and I think that he could be a guy similar to Shead who is a consistent guard option. Now, I think that Nembhard will be maybe a backup, right? I think that he could be a starter. He could start games, but I expect him to be more of a solid backup to decent starter option, which I think he's already almost to that level, and now it's just putting it all together. And once again, this isn't necessarily he has to take a huge jump. It's just guys that I think people should have on their radar. So I think that Nembhard needs to be on the radar, And I think that he has become that recently because of his rookie, because he's leading rookies in assists per game, stuff like that. But I think that he's played some really good basketball this year. I think that we should expect him to continue to play really good basketball. And both him and his brother are really good basketball players. But yeah, that's the only rookie I believe I have on here. Yeah, I believe that's the only rookie I have on here. But he is a very interesting prospect. He is a very, just like, once again, smaller guard, but he just has such good fundamentals that it's hard for me to say, oh, well, he won't be able to play that role. A guy who's a little more cemented, like similar to Jamal Shed, I suppose, where he's cemented into a role a little bit and people are already starting to give him his flowers, but I think he should get even more, is Ryan Dunn. I am such a big fan of Ryan Dunn's. I am a guy who, as a basketball fan, I love a specialist, right? So if that's a playmaking specialist, if that's a defensive specialist, if that's a scoring specialist, like, I love a guy who does one thing really, really well. Now, I understand that that's not necessarily the most sustainable version of play, right? Like, I realize that if you can only do one thing, it's difficult for you to really be great at basketball. But Ryan Dunn, now I mean, I think he has picked up his scoring. I think he has picked up his three-point shooting. He's done better as an offensive option. I don't see him taking the jump that Peyton Watson took and becoming a consistent scoring option. I think that he could be someone who you don't feel bad about on the offensive end, but I don't see him becoming like, oh, well, if Devin Booker's getting clamped up, give it to Ryan Dunn, he'll get us out of this. Plus you have Grayson Allen, you have Dylan Brooks, you have these other guys that have been playing, Colin Gillespie, these other guys that have been playing really good offensive basketball, and Ryan Dunn has just fit in as someone who's really good on the defensive end. He's an incredible perimeter defender. Like, he will lock up your best player. He's a big part of what the Suns can do defensively. I think that the Suns have shown some promise on the defensive end. I've been really impressed with the Suns overall this year. I didn't expect them to be nearly as good as they have been. I don't think anybody did. They've looked extremely good. And when you look at Ryan Dunn, I think he's a big part of that because he's bringing some of that defensive fire, some of that defensive fight. Plus, like I said, he's improved the three-point jump shot a little bit. He's improved, like, not being quite as, hidden on the offensive end. Now, I don't think that like I said, I don't think he's ever going to be a great scorer, but I do think that he could become someone who is a decent enough scorer that you don't feel bad about him on the offensive end, and what he gives you on the defensive end will be far more of a pro than his somewhat lack of an offense would be a con. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Dunn's. Like, he is one of my favorite players on the Suns currently. He's one of my favorite players who's not associated with the Nets or Suns or Nets or Nuggets in any way. He is associated with the Suns, believe it or not, playing for them and all. So yeah, both Ryan Dunn and Ryan Nembhard, I believe the Ryans, they're here to stay. But I do really like Ryan Dunn. I think if you're going to put stock in a guy, I think that Ryan Dunn could potentially become an all-defensive player down the line. I think that he could make an all-defensive team if he's given opportunity, similar to guys in OKC. Now, the team's becoming, positionless. That's the word I'm looking for. Positionless does make it a little more difficult for perimeter-focused guys to make it, but we've seen guys like Lou Dort make it and Jaden McDaniels, these great defenders, and I think Ryan Dunn could be on that tier for sure. Another guy very similar archetype is Keon Ellis. Keon Ellis similarly has shown people that he can play defense and that he wants to play defense. There's been a kind of a trade war over Keon Ellis. There's been a lot of talk about him getting traded and what the Kings are asking for Keon. I think he's another great defensive wing. I think that on any contender, he could be a huge piece, right? You put him on the Nuggets right now, and he's a huge piece. You put him on the Thunder, and their defense gets even scarier. You put him on the Rockets, and their defense becomes even scarier, and their offense gets even worse. That is the one thing about Keon is he's not a great offensive player. Similar in that aspect to the way that Ryan Dunn does lack a little bit. I think that he could be a huge part of a contender even still, right? He provides you with that offensive or that defensive value. Offensively, similar, like I don't see him becoming a great offensive player. I could maybe see him becoming a guy who I don't know exactly what his ceiling looks like on the offensive end, but I do love the defensive upside. I think that him being in Sacramento doesn't really fit because it's like, what are they doing, right? And I don't mean to be incredibly disrespectful to Sacramento, but what are they doing? But Keon and Keegan Murray, I believe they both came in the same class, right? I want to say both of them, or was Keon later? I don't know, but I want to say that they both came in the same class, and I was huge believers in both of them because, like I said, I love a specialist. I love a defensive specialist. I love a guy who can just go out there and lock up a great scoring wing. And then on the Keegan Murray side of things, I don't have him on this list, but I just like he had such a good rookie year that I was believing in him so much, and now I don't know if he needs a change of scenery or whatever, but he just hasn't. He's kind of just fallen out of conversations. I still think he's a good player, and I do. I mean, I have a Keegan Murray jersey. Like, I'm a fan of Keegan Murray. Go Hawks. But I do think that it is going to be interesting to see what happens with Keon Ellis. I don't know if he gets traded this season. I would like to see him go somewhere else. I'd like to see him go somewhere that actually has an identity and see how he can fit into that. But I think that he's another guy who maybe could potentially become an defensive player if he's given the opportunity and if he's given and like he didn't get. I feel like it was under Mike Brown that he just didn't get many minutes, and it was like, why do you hate Keon Ellis? Like their defense wasn't good, and he was like, you know what, throw Kevin Huerter out there, and it was like, what are we doing? Like you already have Sabonis who can't really defend anything, and you have DeMar who can't really defend. Oh, I guess DeMar came in a little later, but their defense wasn't good, and he wouldn't play Keon, and I feel like when he gets opportunity, Keon plays great basketball. But then again, like I said, I love a good perimeter defender. Like a Davion Mitchell was a guy who I really believed in, and left Sacramento and has been making an impact with Miami. So I'm just saying, maybe get out of Sacramento. They're cursed. I would hate to be a Sacramento sports fan. I mean, I say Sacramento sports as if there are multiple. It's pretty much Sacramento sport. It is the Kings, and that's it. Moving on, I don't mean to diss on Sacramento. I'm sorry. But moving on, there's another guy. So this is one of the most questionable ones I have on the list. And the reason I think of him with Sacramento is because the Kings and Pelicans have been doing this little thing on the internet where they just like, they'll jump each other for 14th and 15th and then talk smack. And I think it's hilarious. And I think they play sometime this week, and I didn't make that or they play... I don't know. They play at some point. I know that. Let me check. But I was thinking about making that the game of the week whenever it came up. I thought they played more. I saw something about it. But anyway, whatever. I'll find it. Oh, it's in February. Yeah, they play February on the 9th. So that's peak basketball right there. Tune in. Maybe I'll make that the game of the day. But anyway, moving on. The guy on the Pelicans that I think of is Jordan Hawkins. Now, I know that Hawkins has, I saw Hawkins his rookie year in a Nuggets, in Denver, playing against the Nuggets. And he fried them. He gave them 20-something or 30-something. And I was like, I barely know anything about this guy. Right, so I watched some film, I watched a little bit, and it was like, this guy obviously has scoring abilities. And now, since then, I've kind of believed in him less, right? And I think that I almost took him out of this list, and he's the one I feel the least confident about. He's the most of a stretch. But the one reason I still have him on here is because the Pelicans are not a good basketball team, and they are not an extremely functional basketball team. So when I look at that team, I kind of look at them and I say, maybe Hawkins just doesn't fit, right? So maybe if we give him a different, just a reset somewhere else, he plays good basketball. You know what I mean? And I don't, like I said, I don't feel entirely comfortable about that. But when he's confident, he scores really well, right? Like he can hit contested shot after contested shot. He can score from the mid range. He can hit threes. He can get to the rim. He's a decent athlete. He doesn't hesitate when he sees a contest. Like the one problem is, well, there are a couple problems. I shouldn't say one problem. One of the problems is he's not consistent, right? Another problem is he doesn't really get opportunity, and he's someone who needs to be a high volume scorer to do much, and that is not really a recipe for success in the NBA. And the other thing is he can't really do much else besides score, which it's unfortunate because, like I said, I believe so much in him. Like his rookie year, I thought that he looked really good. Now I think maybe I can look at him and say, okay, maybe not. Like maybe that was a miss of mine. But I still feel like maybe if you like, he's the one who needs to change teams, right? Sensabaugh and Keon, I feel like sort of needs to leave. But like Ryan Dunn, Nembhard, Shed, all these guys I've talked about, they can kind of stick with their team and they can do something there. Hawkins, not really. Hawkins, I think, would need to move to do anything. Even then, I wouldn't feel super confident about it, but I just do feel like there are things there that makes me feel like he could be a great scorer, someone else, or at least a good scorer, someone else, like a sixth man, maybe not even sixth, like just a spark plug off the bench that you can plug in and he'll give you some buckets. That's what, like a Malik Monk, maybe. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't feel entirely confident about that one, but I still wanted to mention him. I still wanted to bring him out. Another guy who fits that role sort of is Julian Strawther. His scoring upside is there, right? I believe in him. He is a Nuggets relation, so I do kind of have some form of loyalty to that. But he is, I think he's got scoring upside. He's got shooting upside. We saw it like even in the playoffs last year, right? He hit some big shots, and then the thumbs down. I love that. But the confidence is there a lot of time. Like when he gets the ball and he's in a spot where he can score, he wants to score, right? The thing is, sometimes he takes some bad shots and he just sometimes feels a little bit disconnected from the game, right? When you look at him on the defensive end, sometimes he's sort of lost. Sometimes he's not great at defense. He's not great at playmaking. Sometimes he takes shots that doesn't feel great. Feels like sometimes he's a little rushed. He's another one who I think maybe could benefit from a scenery change, right? Like if you move him away from Denver, obviously Denver is such a hard place to get into the rotation because they've got so much talent, right? You look at Julian Strawther as a guard would be having to compete with Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jalen Pickett for a minute, like these guys that have played. Pickett hasn't been historically like, oh, well, you can't take Jalen Pickett's minutes, but he's played some really good basketball recently, and I think that Strawther, it's just difficult for him to be the player that he wants to be in this group, but I do still believe in his shooting upside and his scoring upside, and now the question just becomes, will he be able to work on the consistency and the other aspects of his game quite enough for him to be great? Now, I don't see him, like he's a similar one to Hawkins, where I don't see him becoming a full-time starter, but I could see him being a spark plug offensive option off the bench who you feel good about with the ball in his hands. He just needs a little bit more of that confidence. Once again, he's still young, so he could get that, it's not really confidence, it's like comfort. If he could find that comfortable area where he knows what he's doing all the time, I think that he could look really solid. And if that's in Denver, which I sort of doubt it is, just because Denver has so much going on in terms of their roster that it's so difficult for him to work his way in. Like Peyton Watson had to work his way in, and he's done that, and he's worked his way into the starting lineup at this point. Now that's partially due to injuries, but I do think that it'll be interesting to see what Strawther looks like somewhere else. Like he's another one that I just kind of want to see get moved just to see what would happen, right? Just to see if the struggles that he's shown have been more due to he doesn't fit here, or if they're more due to maybe he's just not incredible. Now, I love Julian Strawther. Like he is a player that I really enjoy. I have a signed Julian Strawther basketball. Like I really do like Julian Strawther. But I do think that he's a player who, if he gets moved, it could be interesting to see what he could do somewhere else. We've got a couple more guys here, and then we'll go to our games of the week. We've got two big men here who I actually really do enjoy. We've got Adem Bona. I think it's pronounced Adem, not Adam, seeing as it's spelled with an E. But I do think it's Adem Bona. He's got good size and defensive instincts. He's got such good starting tools. I don't know exactly how to phrase that, but he's got such good starting tools, similar to the other guy I'll talk about in a bit. He's played good minutes alongside Joel Embiid. Now sometimes he does, and he's another guy he's worked his way into the Sixers rotation. Like, he's well in there already. It's not like the Hawkins and Strathers where I'm like, well, maybe they could do something. But Bona then genuinely Bona. It might be Bona. I don't know why. Like, I've watched games with him, and I've heard the announcer say his name, and now I can't remember how to do it. But he's played good minutes alongside Joel Embiid, which I do think is promising. Now, Embiid, we've known, has been injury-prone. But if Embiid misses time, then you've got yourself a genuine backup center in Bona. I'm going to assume it's Bona. Bona? I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. But you've got a good guy, a good backup center in this guy who can really provide you with some good defensive abilities. He can rebound the ball. He can catch lobs. He can play he's more of a traditional big man, right? He's not really spacing the floor, but he can play inside. He can work on the post, on the block, and play that kind of traditional center role. Now, I know that that's a role also like the smaller guards that has kind of gone out of popularity recently. But it's not completely gone, and I do think that Abana does fit that role, and he plays it well, right? He's got good instincts defensively. Like I said, he's a good shot blocker. He's difficult to score against because he's big, he's strong, he's a good athlete, and he's just a good rim protector. So if, I don't know if you continue to play him alongside Embiid consistently, or if you play him just off the bench, and then when Embiid's out, then he's your starter, because I genuinely think that he could fit like a Day'Ron Sharpe type of role where he's one of the better backup centers in the league. I think Day'Ron's one of the better backup centers in the league. And not only that, but could also slot into that starting lineup like a Day'Ron or a Mitchell Robinson, where they can slot into starting lineups if needed, but most of the time come off the bench. I think he could play that role extremely well. And I think he already kind of does, right? Like, he's already at that role. So once again, he's another one that's sort of just like Shed, where I'm just like, get him on your radar, right? Like, he might not grow a whole ton as a player, but he's someone who should get his flowers, right? And then the last one we've got today is Mo Gay. Another one that I just can't pronounce. I'm sorry. But I think is really interesting because he doesn't get a lot of opportunity in Atlanta, but he's got such good vertical abilities because he can jump, plus he's tall and he's lengthy. But he blocks shots. He finishes well inside. He catches lobs. He's a really good athlete, right? He's mobile for his size. He has this ability so he's somewhat skinnier, which I do worry a little bit about, like, can he defend the bigger big men? But because he's a good athlete, because he's got that vertical ability, he can protect the rim, and he's not going to be locking up on the perimeter, but he can stick with quicker players. He's a good lob threat. He's a good vertical threat is what he is. Now, he doesn't have a whole lot in terms of a post game. He needs work. He's another one who needs work. He doesn't have a whole lot in terms of putting the ball on the floor, but he can space the floor a little bit. Like, there have been times where he steps outside the arc and he'll knock one down. He still needs work on his efficiency from there. But if he could get that jump shot to be efficient, plus if he could get, if he could get to a point where he's consistently getting minutes as a roller in the pick and roll, he could get to a point where he's playing as a rim protector, as a 4 or a 5, where he just is there to protect the rim, and like his length makes it very difficult for players to do a whole lot. He's a guy that I just believe in. Whenever I see Mo Gay minutes, I feel like he's someone who should be getting more. He's just someone who I think should be getting more minutes, whether that's in Atlanta or somewhere else. I think that he should be playing more. And I understand he's unfinished and he's still got a lot to work on, but I just believe in a lot of the things he does. So those are all the guys that I had. Now, obviously, there's a ton of them around the league, right? This is the NBA. So there are tons of guys who are just kind of hidden on the bench or who are not hidden at all, but they just aren't really seen. So that's poetic right there. But guys that they play good basketball and they're not really rewarded for it. So today's episode was all about just kind of talking about guys who I think should get a little more respect, whether that's, some of them, they do need to go somewhere else to get it. But guys who I think are better than either people give them credit for or their situations allow them to be, if that makes sense. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if you've got any more. Drop them in the comments. There are tons of guys across the league who are like this, and it's easier to spot them on your own teams, I think. And that's how I see Peyton Watson, Cam Thomas. So if you're a Wizards fan and you're like, oh, this guy is legit, then yeah, I'll look out for him next time I watch. So please do. Drop anyone who you think could be great or is great and just doesn't get the respect they deserve. And I'll be sure to look at that. Now we'll move on to our games of the week. So last week that we did it, we went 5-1. We recorded that episode on Monday, so we went 5-1. That was a really good week for us. That brought our total record up, or our 2026 record up to 48-10, and our total record up to 83-45. So we've had a decent year so far. We've done better than last year. We already have. Last year we went 35-23, and this year we're 48-10. So if my math is correct, that's the same number of games, and we've won 13 more. Now, I didn't start at the beginning of last year, which is why I missed so many, but still, much improved. Next year we're going perfect. So anyway, this week on Sunday we've got Raptors going to LA. This is today. This is Sunday. Going to LA to play the Lakers. I'm taking the Raptors there. The Lakers are kind of banged up and they haven't been playing great recently. They've dropped a couple games to opponents that they probably should have beaten. The Raptors have been at a decent level, and because of those Lakers injuries, I'm taking the Raptors tonight. Monday, Celtics going to Detroit to play the Pistons. Now, these teams have already played 3 times. The Pistons are currently up 2-1. I expect them to split the season series, which is why I'm going to take the Celtics here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Pistons won. They did play last night, but they blew out the Pacers, so it wasn't like they're really tired because their starters were all sitting, at least for the fourth quarter. Tuesday, Spurs going a little Texas matchup. We've got 3 straight matchups of Subway series. I don't know if they have the Subway in Texas, but maybe. Tuesday, we got Spurs going to Houston to play the Rockets. I'm taking the Spurs there because it is a Texas matchup. The home court advantage probably won't be insane, and I just don't totally trust the Rockets. I don't trust the Rockets offense. I say don't totally. I don't at all. Plus, I do think that the Spurs with Wembanyama, with Cornette, with these big men that they've got, they can kind of limit the offensive rebounding of the Rockets at least a little bit, and they should be able to kind of limit what the Rockets are trying to do on that end. And defensively, I mean, the Spurs have just played great basketball as well. This isn't like, oh, well, the Rockets match up poorly. This is also like the Spurs are just a really good basketball team. Wednesday, we've got the Nets and the Knicks. I don't give the Nets a whole lot of games of the week because I understand that despite they are my team, I've got the Nets Kyrie jersey on right now. They're not great at basketball, which I understand, but they're going to Madison Square Garden to play the Knicks. I said this one because it was Subway series, right? I'm taking the Knicks here. I don't feel awful about it. They're a better basketball team. We're rebuilding and they're looking to contend. So yeah, give me the Knicks. If the Nets win, we run the city. If the Knicks win, yeah, of course, that's what happens. I love picking and choosing. I love cherry picking. Thursday, we've got Lakers-Clippers, LA matchup. Now, I said that I wasn't I wasn't riding for the Clippers at all this year. Or not anymore, right? I said that they haven't shown me anything. I said that they have not proven themselves. I said that they've been the most disappointing team of the year. Give me the Clippers. They've been hot. They've won like 4 or 5 in a row. The Lakers are still kind of bouncing back from some injuries, and honestly, I don't totally believe in the Clippers or in the Lakers. I don't know how much I believe in the Clippers, but I do believe in the fact that Kawhi and Harden and Zubac been hooping. Give me the Clippers. Friday, Rockets going to Detroit to play the Pistons. This time I'm taking the Pistons. I'm not going to pick them to lose twice in the same week just because they've been so good this year. And plus, I still don't trust the offensive creation of the Rockets. I'm sorry to the Rockets and to the Lakers. I picked against both you guys this week twice. Sorry. Better luck next week. Saturday, we've got Warriors going to Minnesota to play the Wolves. Give me the Wolves there. I just think they're a better team. The Warriors have shown, there have been a lot of trade rumors about them, but that's about as much news as they've made this year. Other than that, I just don't totally. I mean, they've had good games. They haven't been bad. I just think the Wolves are a slightly better team, and they've got home court advantage, which helps. So those are my games of the week. Drop your guys' predictions in the comments as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's a somewhat shorter episode today. We didn't go over the full hour, but I think that's okay. Let me know once again what you guys like in terms of episode length. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. I will see you next week on Just Talk Hoops.